Let's create some cozy DIY fall decor crafts. Welcome to the Chic Show. This first project is going to be several different fall tags. I'm going to be painting them in these fusion colors. For this leaf tag, I'm using one of IOD's Bountiful Harvest stamps. I'm just trying to make it fit on there where it looks like the veins of the leaf fit the wood cutout. I'm just re-inking the stamp and maneuvering it to fit where I need each part to fit. This leaf stamp fit almost perfectly. For the next few tags, I'm using IOD's ephemeral stamps. And again for the acorn, I'm using the ephemeral stamps, but I am going to do something a little different at the top. I'm going to be adding Mod Podge to the top and adding some pet bedding. I think it's for hamsters. It's just ground up corn cob, so it's nothing gross. I see a lot of people use it for fake peanuts and that sort of thing on faux sweet treats. Once I had them glued on and I let them dry for a little bit, I went back with some watered down antique wax just to make the color a little bit darker. And then I sealed them in with some clear glue. And this is just clear Jot glue from Dollar Tree. I don't have a final picture and I apologize about that. Now these two pumpkins I got from Hobby Lobby, and this is some of Roy Cycle's decoupage paper that I got in Sonnet's Maker's Box. I cut the decoupage paper to fit both sides of my pumpkin, and I gave both sides of the pumpkin a coat of white chalk paint. Using liquid patina by DIY, I applied my decoupage paper. I did allow the liquid patina to dry completely, and then I used the iron-on method. So I placed my decoupage paper down, a piece of Teflon on top, and then used my mini iron press to adhere the decoupage paper to the pumpkin. I did paint the edges of my pumpkin. I can't remember if it was Old 57 or if it was Farm Fresh. Then I sanded away the excess paper along the outside with my finger sander and the inside with an emery board. For this project, I'm using one of Dollar Tree's canvases and this stencil that I got on clearance at Hobby Lobby for, I think, 62 cents. Now I'm using Sandy Blonde by DIY Paint, and I'm going to be using some modeling paste as well. I'm going to paint the canvas in Sandy Blonde. I'm going to tape down the stencil, and I'm going to be using that modeling paste to scrape over the top of the stencil for a raised textured effect. I did have a little bit of bleeding, but it wasn't really textured, so I was able to just paint over it once it had completely dried. Once the paint had dried, I sealed everything with some clear wax. I wanted to highlight the textured part, so I chose to use some dark wax, actually black wax. And I went over this, and of course, not being very careful, I got it onto the canvas. So then I thought, well, I'll just add it to the whole canvas because the clear wax should help me wipe some of this back. Well, it really didn't go according to plan, so it's a little bit messier than what I originally planned for this piece. But in the end, it does give it kind of the background kind of a textured look as well, which isn't a bad thing. Still wanted to highlight the textured part, so I used some gold rub and buff on that, and this was a little bit easier for me to control. I have this thrifted frame, but I wasn't real happy with the color of it. I wanted it gold, but not so brown. I wanted a little bit darker colors in there, so I used that black wax and I rubbed it all around the frame so that it would get into some of those little crevices. It's kind of a subtle difference on camera, but it did help to kind of darken it up. For this project, I'm using this piece from Connie's Lines, and it's from Sonnet's Maker's Box, and this wood piece that I got on clearance at Hobby Lobby. So I'm just trying to decide exactly where I want to cut my paper, but I'm not actually going to cut it. I'm going to be tearing it. So I'm going to paint along the edges of it with water so that I can tear the paper. This is rice paper, so rice paper is a little bit different than decoupage paper. It does have fibers and things that look really neat when you tear along the edges. I didn't want this to fit along the edges of the piece because I want to do what Connie actually does in some of her artwork. And so I gave this a coat of either 57 or Farm Fresh. I really can't remember the difference in the two paints that I've used today. But I'm also using some white chalk paint. I'm kind of blending those together around the edges of the block so that I can blend them with the background of the pumpkins. I'm just going back and forth with the rice paper to be sure I have the proper areas covered. And once I do, I painted the back of the rice paper with white chalk paint since I had already painted the sign. This will allow the colors of the rice paper to come through rather than the background. Next, I'm going to do a little bit of paint splatter with some watered down chalk paint so that it will kind of match what is going on with the background of the pumpkins. Now that I have that to my liking, I'm going to apply some DIY liquid patina to the whole piece, and then I'll place down my rice paper and go over it again with another coat of the liquid patina. so much for joining me today. I hope you'll let me know which project was your favorite in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Remember to share the chic. Bye now.